Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Television Talk Show, where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 1 p.m. Central Time. As I get to ride home with you in the afternoon, we are syndicated on Abundance Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. You can also find us syndicated as well, our podcast on thenewscaster.com. We still do all social media sites there as well. Facebook.com/DFeazell is another good way to find us. YouTube hasn't kicked me off in a long time either, so we're there to stay, maybe. So thank you so much for all of the social media attention that we get. We definitely appreciate that. Continue sending emails, by the way. It makes my day. You're the apple of my eye. Thank you so much for sending those emails, because you're the reason we do what we do. And when you come up with suggestions for the shows, whether it be gardening or you want to talk politics, finances, all those great things, we can handle it for you. And so I appreciate you giving me. Also, thank you so much for sending me articles. I appreciate that as well. It gives me a lot of reading to do. As you know, I love to read. I'm a nerd. So thank you so much for doing that for me. Alan Mendenhall is with me right now, a good friend of mine. He's been on the show for many, many years. And I'm going to tell you what, this guy is my go-to for finances. And you've helped me out in a lot of ways. Yeah, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, Alan. And you have.
You're a young dog. I don't know what you're talking about.
We're friends for life. Just keep that thought. Alan is an author and a speaker. He's written numerous books. So before we get started, how can folks find your writings?
Well, most of them are available on my website, www.alanmendenhall.com. Feel free to click on any ads you see there as many times as possible. I'm joking. And my books are there. My articles are there. I have a YouTube channel. You just put my name into YouTube and find it that way. And in general, you can find my stuff just online or my books through Amazon.
Absolutely. I like all of your books. And I love the ones on finances. I really do love the one when you were a kid growing up.
Oh, yeah. The book of Bees and Boys is the one that has probably been the best-selling of any of them. Maybe the novel was the best-selling. But at any rate, people tend to like Of Bees and Boys because it's just a collection of first-person essays about my experiences from childhood or from family and different eras of my life. And people tend to like that.
Yeah, I was talking to someone the other day about how I survived. I ate dirt, drank out of a water hose.
I know. I can remember picking leaves off trees and eating them, and they did not taste good. I'm glad they weren't poison ivy or something.
There's no telling what I ate. That's probably why I survived COVID. And it's probably why I didn't have to take a jab. I mean, I was already immune.
Remember those bathroom wash things that it was just a one round thing that everyone used? That was all it was, and everyone used it. It's so gross.
Yeah, every once in a while, even in a restaurant, every once in a while somebody would come in and roll it, switch it out or something. I'm not sure what but everybody used those.
Yeah. I remember, Donna, we were going on a family vacation, and my mom turns around to give us a lecture. And I have a brother and a sister, both younger. I was the oldest. And my dad was driving the car. And my mom said, now everybody knows that when you go into a public restroom, you make sure to either put toilet paper down the seat or use a seat cover. And instantly, my dad and brother, I said, seat cover? What's a seat cover? Because at that time, those had never been introduced into a men's bathroom. And we had no idea what she was talking about. Explain what the seat cover is. And she said, you can get flushed. What are you talking? We had never in our lives heard of such a thing. And she was shocked that we hadn't. But that's the era we grew up in.
Well, I have to tell you, both my grandmothers, when we would travel, they would go into a restaurant we'd never been into before. First thing they would do, both grandmothers would do the same thing. They'd say, let me go in the restroom first and I'll see if it's okay. And what they would do is they would go into the restroom, and if it was dirty, they'd say, no, let's find another restaurant.
Yeah, another restaurant.
Because they would say, if the restrooms are dirty, the kitchen is dirty.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
Found that to be true.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's actually a great tip to look for.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and it's so funny. Phil and I are redoing. There's another piece of property onto this one, so we're redoing the property and we're going to rent that out to someone. But just looking when you go to restaurants, because we're pretty particular at painting and we're putting floor covering down and all kinds of stuff like that. We're just giving you a good facelift. And I told Phil, I said, we go to a public place and I'll see where somebody's painted and it's like on the floor, where they didn't clean it up. You would think a public place hiring somebody, it would just be spot on.
Oh, yeah. There's a Mexican restaurant close to me that is presently shut down because there were some ICE raids, and the owner was doing all kinds of stuff with illegal immigrants, but also had possession of just countless drugs. I can't even remember all the drugs he had. So we're having to find a new Mexican restaurant. But it's funny, the whole reference of ICE reminds me of I had a graduate student who was he was from Guatemala and he was studying in the United States. This was just in January this year. And I don't know if you recall all the snow and ice on the ground from that period. We had a big snow and we were driving down to Mobile. I had to pick him up. He was going to help me run this seminar for high school teachers. And so I picked him up in Troy. I left Auburn, picked him up in Troy, driving down to Mobile. And after I picked him up, I said, I don't think we're going to have too much trouble with the ice, because the sun had come out and things were going us. I don't think we're going to have too much trouble with ice on this trip. And I don't see it being a problem. He said, well, I don't see why we would. And even if we did, I'm a legal immigrant anyway. And I said, no, not that ice. I'm talking about the ice on the road. I'm not worried about ice coming and pulling us over and pulling you out of the car. But it was a hilarious misunderstanding.
It really is. You think about, just in the manner of way we say things, like when you call customer service, anytime you call customer service, you're going to get somebody in India or another country or whatever, and I'm kind of getting used to it now. But I've also often thought about how customs are different, language is different. And how you say it and that kind of thing. I have to wonder how much miscommunication happens because of that language barrier.
Yeah. I think one example, when I lived in Japan, I had a student ask me about our use of double negatives. And if I were to say to you, if we were having dinner and I were to say to you, aren't you going to eat that? You'd say, yeah. In other words, you'd say, yeah, I'm going to eat that. But to the Japanese person thinking very literally, you are saying yes to, are you not going to eat that? And they take that as, yes, I am not going to eat that. But we don't treat it that way. We just, without even thinking about it, we just say, yes, of course I'm going to eat that. So they're just little things like that get lost in translation.
Oh, it is. And that's why I think billing goes wrong sometimes with companies. It's because the person on the other end of the phone didn't quite understand what we were saying, especially if you're Southern English like me. So it's like, do you have a Southern English interpreter? Maybe you would understand. So, but I can see where things can go wrong.
Sure. Absolutely.
Well, there's a whole crazy world out there. And banking seems to, I don't know if banking is good now or if banking is bad now. I really don't know. I haven't made that determination. Can you kind of fill me in on what's happening?
Well, banking is banking. Banking in itself is a neutral activity, which is good. There is a phenomenon that is called debanking, which in its current manifestation, at least, is bad. And here's why I think so. First of all, it's happening. It's worse than people realize. It's a misunderstood phenomenon because what it is when financial institutions, typically under federal regulatory pressure, deny services to individuals or groups for ideological or political reasons. It's become a political flashpoint for conservatives in particular because typically it's conservatives who are getting debanked, or people who support Second Amendment rights are getting debanked. Fortunately, there's a trend that is countering this. JP Morgan Chase announced this year that it's going to get rid of some of its debanking stuff. Citigroup announced that it would halt its debanking stuff. Regions Bank right here in Red, Alabama has not yet announced that it's going to do it. I'm hoping that it will. But last year, we actually had legislation addressing debanking in the Alabama legislature. Arthur Orr was one of the sponsors. I can't recall if he was the lead sponsor, but he was one of the sponsors. And it went nowhere. And I think it's due to a widespread and maybe even dangerous misconception that addressing debanking through legislation is government meddling in private business, but that's just not the case. There's a new white paper out by America First Policy Institute, AFPI, and it really exposes the flaw in that misunderstanding. And so rather than just saying debanking, that white paper refers to government-driven debanking to underscore that it actually is public sector coercion and not free markets pushing banks to target conservative individuals and organizations in debanking. The other thing to realize about banking is that banking doesn't operate in a true free market. The industry doesn't operate anything resembling a true free market. And that's because major banks, big banks, financial institutions benefit from federal deposit insurance, from privileged access to Federal Reserve as favored lenders. And then there's the ever-lurking promise of taxpayer-funded bailouts for banks deemed too big to fail. So basically, the government subsidizes practices that would be riskier than they would be on a free market because the banks know, look, if we take all these risks and we fail, we know we're backed up by the government. So the banking industry in the free market would be much less risky. All those protections that banks enjoy amount to a government backstop, and that distorts the competitive landscape and undermines the argument that banks are merely private actors operating independently of state influence. So the Trump administration is really working hard to push back against this debanking trend, and there's legislation being passed in several states that is prohibiting banks from discriminating on the basis of ideology or political viewpoints. And this is not government meddling insofar as these banks enjoy public privileges. And if you're going to enjoy all these public privileges, you have to have the other side of that, which is public accountability or public responsibility. Now, if it were a purely free market and you got rid of all those privileges and you were operating under market conditions, then telling a bank what it could or couldn't do in those terms would be a problematic thing in terms of debanking. But if you look at the history of debanking, where it really became problematic was under the Obama administration. He notoriously instituted this Operation Choke Point, which is a program that went right at the heart of the Second Amendment and tried to pressure banks to sever ties with lawful firearms dealers. It was framed as a crackdown on fraud and money laundering, but it went after all these firearms industry, and it was not based on any evidence of wrongdoing, but purely on reputational concerns. So the Obama administration elevated reputational risk in its regulatory framework, defined risk in such a way that, if you're a conservative and you're supporting conservative stuff, then you're a risky client. And that's how this all started. And Trump tried to push back on it in his first administration and did, but now I think he's really focusing on how to do more during this second term. So that's in short. I would never say banks writ large are bad. They're not. We all need banking. But I think the debanking phenomenon absolutely is bad. And, denying capital and financial services to people because they are conservative is problematic.
Yeah, but this seems like an oxymoron. Okay, kind of like we were talking about when you were in Japan and the way you would say something, they would take it a different way. Okay, well, this is the oxymoron part of this. Okay, so let's say I want a business partnership with someone. Okay, I'm probably going to want someone who's conservative rather than a liberal, because I figure they're going to watch every penny. I figure they're going to be really, really careful. They're not going to go bankrupt on us. I mean, I'm going to figure that the conservative would be better than the liberal. Aren't you setting yourself up for problems a little bit later on? Because, I don't want those dirty conservatives in. They're just too, they're too risky. What's risky about a conservative?
Yeah, I think that's a big problem. I 100% agree. But the Obama administration was probably the worst presidential administration in the history of the United States. And that's really where government began to be weaponized in political ways, unlike we had seen in a long time. I'm not going to say it's never been that way, but But in our lifetimes, certainly it had not been elevated to that degree. And so, Obama tried to embed elite cultural preferences throughout the administrative state. And the Biden administration, same thing. It was the same playbook. If we can encode all this stuff into the regulatory apparatus, then it's very difficult to undo all that. Of course, Donald Trump has come in with a wrecking ball and is going after the administrative state, and also in ways we haven't seen. And I hear people on the left and even friends on the right who say, I'm worried about the power that Donald Trump is utilizing. And I say, well, what Donald Trump is doing is dismantling power structures. He's not erecting new power structures. He's dismantling the administrative state. He's dismantling the deep state and all these power structures that already exist. So I don't really understand why, if your primary concern is power for the sake of power, why Donald Trump, who's been a target of power and who's been, disempowered, is really the enemy. He's not. He's going after those deeply entrenched power structures that have been impossible to dismantle until recently.
Well, I mean, it's like, in the 60s and the 70s, all the liberals were talking about, we're going to give it to the man. Well, and then you might ask, well, what is the man? Well, he's a rich white man. He's a rich white. Well, not necessarily. I mean, who's the man? Okay, you've got to have businesses. Now, I'm not saying mistreat people, nothing like that whatsoever. But every company I've ever worked with, Alan, when I worked with GTE, I actually wanted them to make a profit. Because if they didn't make a profit, I wouldn't have a job. It's called job security. Yeah. You want the people you work for to be successful. Because if they're giving all their money to you, they're not going to have any way to pay their rent. They're not going to have any way to pay utilities. None of that stuff. So the whole thing is messed up. It's just, and I agree with you about Trump. Trump is the one who's actually dismantling all this stuff. I know when Obama was president, we were living in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was at a Tea Party meeting. We were right there at the courthouse. So Phil calls and he says, you need to get back home now. And he's telling me to get home. And I'm like, why? And so they were showing news footage. It's a liberal television station in Charlotte. And they were showing footage of people in my group being like, we were having to be toted off. We were like ruffians. We were just, and I said, well, I don't know what you're looking at. I said, nothing like that's happening here. I said, this is probably one of the most boring meetings I've ever been to. People are like, they love the country and all this, but nobody's acting like that. Nobody's falling, having to be, dead weight lifted off. None of that stuff is going on. But it was when Sarah Palin was coming. Not stupid, by the way. Really good woman. But anyway, then a few
I don't know what Sarah Palin's doing right now, by the way. I have no idea. Do you know? I don't know.
She's tired of his. Me too. But this is the funny thing that happened. You've always heard that the IRS cannot go back 7 years. They'll only go back 7 years on your taxes. That's not true, Alan. But Bill and I moved back to Alabama, and that was in 2013, 2014. I get a notice from the IRS telling me we owe over $10,000. And so I call them, and I'm trying to be nice on the other end, so that, because if you're rude to them, they're just not going to listen to you. So I'm trying to be nice and kind and all this. And I said, I don't understand this. What is this? And they went back 15 years.
Oh, wow.
On my businesses, and said that I hadn't turned in W-2s. I think that's what they said. And so before we moved, I told Phil, I said, we only have to keep us, junk for like 7 years. So let's just throw all this other garbage away from past years. Because Phil believes in saving every single thing so he doesn't trust the government. And I said, what nonsense? I said, there's boxes of stuff that we need that room because we were downsizing. We moved from a bigger house to a smaller house. And he said, I'm taking it anyway. I'm glad he did not listen to me. Because I had to prove to them we didn't know that. So I was talking with the guy on the other end of the IRS, and I said, well, how did it jump up to $10,000? Because you said your guesstimate was a little bit over $1,000. It was interest and penalties. And then later on, we found out about Lois Lerner. They were targeting people. I got
Wow, that's terrifying. I mean, that stuff was absolutely terrifying. Yeah, I can't even imagine. And Biden wanting to step up the law enforcement powers of the IRS and have those IRS workers armed and all these other, like, what in the world? Like, it's,
where were the Soviet Union? I mean, it was just, that was another thing. It was just like, oh, this guy can't be president. I mean, and neither can his colleague, his VP.
Oh, so, well, it's going to be one of the great scandals of history when we get done with this investigation as to Biden's health cover-up. It will be a great scandal.
I'm sorry. But, okay, so let's say you work for me and I'm getting dementia. Okay, I'm president and you're the VP. You're around me more than anybody else, probably more than my family. You wouldn't notice a few things are out of my character. So for Kamala to say all this time, oh, he's fine to me. I mean, what? I mean, we all notice those little things.
Yeah, I think the Democrats were hopeful after Biden's State of the Union address when he was actually lucid. And that was a big surprise. Everyone thought, oh, he actually pulled it off. Now we're really excited. Now he can be our nominee. And I think that successful State of the Union was really what made him the candidate. And then, obviously, that debate last June exploded the entire candidacy when he got up there and was essentially a shell with a few talking points that could barely even handle a debate. That was just sad to watch.
Yeah, but this is the thing, though. The State of the Union, I didn't look at it that way at all. Because I have a family member who's on meds, and if she's ever off the meds, for God's sakes, get away from her. And then another reason we moved to South Carolina. But anyway, I've seen her. Okay,
this is being recorded, Donna.
High highs and low lows, and that's what he was having. He would have high highs and low lows. He was on meds, and when I saw him do that State of the Union, I'm thinking, he's acting like his family member, because then it was almost they get to where they get this low, then when they get the high, they're pretty mean. I mean, they got that meanness in their voice.
Maybe that's why they found cocaine in the White House. Maybe.
Thanks, just everybody turn around. That's just that. It was powdered sugar or something.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And we're supposed to believe that.
How a bag of cocaine can materialize in the White House and they can't tell you how it got. That's just outrageous. The most surveilled spot on the planet.
Okay, so Phil and I went to the White House one time, and I was kidding. I did not mean I was going to pick a tulip. Okay, it was in the springtime. Tulips were breathtaking. I mean, they did not look real, but they were. I mean, they looked like beautiful wax tulips out there. And I reached down, acting like I was going to pick one of them. Bill grabbed and they said, "You want us to get shot?" And I said, "I'm kidding. I'm not actually going." And they said, "They will shoot you because you're picking up a tulip." and literally, they notice everything.
Yeah.
It's just like you just said, cocaine just went unnoticed.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, speaking of which, right now, as we are talking, there will probably be a gigantic gaggle of protesters outside the Heritage Foundation. I say gaggle, but that's probably not appropriate because they're violent and mean-spirited and angry. And I'm not working out of the Heritage office. I'm working from home today. But when I've been up there, I've been shocked. They're coming every Monday at 3 o'clock and protesting. And they're very obviously paid protesters, but they shout the vilest stuff. Things that, like, I can't even imagine what the point of yelling that is. Like, you're never going to convince anybody that what you're doing is right or good when you have that kind of filth spewing out of your mouth and hate, so much hate. And I think the whole point is to try to disrupt business operations and intimidate, because obviously you're not bringing people to your side. You're not using rhetoric to, convert people, as it were, to what you believe.
Okay, when I was a teenager growing up, about the roughest thing you could do in the hometown I was in was roll yards. Okay, so kids would get together and just, pick on somebody and, put toilet paper all over their house and in the yard and all this kind of stuff. Well, one man disrupted the whole thing, and not by yelling and screaming or carrying on or anything like that. He just walked out there and said, "You kids having fun?" We all said, well, we didn't say much really, if anything. We were afraid he was going to shoot us or something. And he turned around and he said, "Well, y'all have fun." And then he walked in the house. Because he didn't yell and scream at us, we just went home. Because we want somebody to get mad. And that's what they're doing to you guys. They're wanting you to get mad. They want you to go out. They want you to do the same thing they're doing.
Yeah,
so
they
what
want.
you do, you need to get the dean. You need to get somebody to go out there and go, "You kids having fun?"
Well, we've got heightened security out there, but they take these air horns, and if people walk and leave the building, they yell in their ears. Like, that's actually an assault, because you could do real damage to people.
Yeah, you could lose your hearing.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy.
So why can't? What are they out there for, other than getting attention and paid?
I think that the only goal, because obviously it's not to convince people that their side is right, is to disrupt, cause harm, and to cause chaos. That's what I think it is.
Yeah.
And they clearly, the things they yell reveal, these people don't know anything about what the Heritage Foundation, that they just been told whatever, and they come out here and raise a fit. And they can't say 3 or 4 words without one of them being the F-bomb. So I think to diversify your vocabulary a little bit.
Yeah, and that's not going to make anybody like me listen.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's bizarre stuff.
I guess I just don't get it. So do they have jobs, or is this their job? Because they look like
a lot of them are masked, so you can't even see who they are. It's like, well,
something to say, take the mask off. I'll listen.
Yeah, we don't need all this masking stuff. This is not COVID, and if you're so brave, say it to my face with your face exposed. If you're so courageous.
Well, they're being paid. A friend of mine from Charlotte, after we had moved back to Alabama, called me one day, and now she's a liberal, okay? But even she told me this. And she said her son and a group of his friends went out to do a protest. And it was just a little protest thing. And it got out of hand because some people in buses started coming in.
Other people showed up, yeah.
They got out. And so she called her son on the cell phone and said, "You better get home now." And what they thought was going to be a peaceful protest turned into breaking windows downtown in Charlotte and all that. This was probably about about 2000, about 2014, something like that. I think is when that happened. Wow. And you can find it on the news or find it on the internet. But anyway, it turned in, a bunch of idiots got out there with punks, like busting window lights and all this kind of stuff in this beautiful downtown area of Charlotte, North Carolina. But it wasn't the initial folks who went out there. And it was really, and I didn't even understand what they were protesting about either. But anyway, it was some nonsense. But anyway, then the big boys come in, and she said, "I think they were paid." That's back before we knew what we know now.
Yeah.
She said, "I think they were paid." I said,
you can Google the hire protesters. Even there are online companies that provide that service. Do you need a crowd? We'll provide a crowd for you. It's so weird.
It's nonsense. A guy that's been on the show for like 20 years. His name is Rick Staines, and so Rick works in security, and he said that he's aware of all these mobs that come out, and actually they recruit people like this, and they'll pay anywhere between say $50 a day, and it can be onward of like $200 to $500 per day. Just depends on who's doing it. But he said it's usually government enforced.
Wow. Unreal.
Yeah, it really is. That's what our tax dollars go to. That's why I love what President Trump is doing. Because, we work hard for this. And every time I have to pay in, which means I've got a successful business, but every time I have to pay in, it upsets me to see the things that are wasted on, just a bunch of nonsense stuff and things I don't even agree with.
Right. And that's the thing that, ever since government has become the go-to solution for every conceivable problem, it's inevitable that your tax dollars are funding some cause with which you disagree. Given how many of them are out there, your money is being used to subsidize things you don't agree with, and that's just wrong.
It's unreal. We've got to go into a commercial break. We'll be right back in just a few minutes. Man, when you're having fun, time just really super flies. We'll be right back.
Twin City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityyusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you. At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant. At Liberty Bank, we're all about community. Whether it's to help with a charity fundraiser or help families in need, toys at Christmas, or a local football team, we're here for you. You see, we realize the importance of family. Sometimes it's to build a new home or necessary home repairs. We're here for you. If you like the feel of a small town bank with all the conveniences of a big city bank, we're here to serve you. You will find us at any of our convenient locations in DeKalb, Marshall, Etowah, and Blount counties in North Alabama. You can call and speak with any of our friendly staff at 256-659-2175 or check us out on the web at libertybankal.com. And thank you for your support of our community. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender.
We all wonder what tomorrow will bring, but the future lays itself at the feet of the prepared and surrenders to the will of the persistent. It's not easy, but today shapes you so you can shape tomorrow. With Northeast Alabama Community College, when the future asks if you're ready, you can answer.
Yes.
Begin your future. Northeast Alabama Community
Good afternoon. We are back. My name is Donna, and I'm your host of Donna's Age television talk show, Where Truth Matters. I have Alan Mendenhall with me right now. And Alan, tell us a little bit about your background. What are you doing right now?
Well, I am working as a senior advisor to the Capital Markets Initiative at the Heritage Foundation. I live in Alabama. I live in Auburn, Alabama, and commute back and forth from D.C. Prior to that, I was Associate Dean of the Business School at Troy University and Executive Director of the Manuel H. Johnson Center. Prior to that, I was Associate Dean of the Law School at Faulkner University and Executive Director of the Blacksburg Burke Center. I worked for the Alabama Attorney General. I worked for the Alabama Chief Justice. I was in private practice in Atlanta. And I've taught at numerous colleges throughout the state of Alabama. And I research, I write, I speak, I'm a professional conservative, I tell people. When people say, I don't really know how to explain what it is you do. And I say, well, I don't really either, but I'm a professional conservative, and I think that's the best thing to do, which, sometimes that means writing novels and talking about literature. Sometimes it means teaching. Sometimes it means helping people draft legislation. Sometimes it means just speaking to community organizations. I write a weekly column for 1819 News. It's just a lot of different things.
Well,
I come on the show every month, which is a fun part of it.
Well, I wanted to mention this because you're getting a lot of attention from the media. And so, I mean, we're friends on Facebook and all that, so I get to see all these really neat places that interview you, and I think it's pretty awesome. I'm really proud.
Well, last month was sort of busy, but I did a nice Newsmax spot, and I was conveniently at the headquarters in the Heritage Foundation when news broke on some things, and so I got to use their TV studios, and it's always easier for me when I'm there to have those studios and all the cameras and equipment, whereas here as I revealed to you, here's my secret, I'm in an adult beanbag chair on the floor of my study with some lamps. I do the best I can. I've got a mic down here, but certainly no green screen TV studio.
It looks nice to me. I mean, it looks really good.
It's comfortable.
Yeah, but something, having content, which is what you have, and that's what makes you a go-to guy. I mean, I grab you all I can, for interviews, because it's just, people need to know what's really happening and what really is going on in this country. So what do you think about, Trump has been in the office now for a few months, few weeks. How would you rate his job at this point?
Well, I think he's doing a great job. I mean, things that I'm particularly excited about are happening, like the dismantling of the Department of Education. I think that the Big Beautiful Bill passing was a major success for him. I think his position in the Middle East has been widely celebrated, and he got through the 12-day war without the United States entering into a war, and that was impressive. The one thing that I think needs to happen now is we need to confirm appointees. My friend Andy Puzder was just confirmed over the weekend to be ambassador to the European Union. I'm very excited about that. He, when I had a television show, sat with me and did an interview. But if you look at Trump's first term, he confirmed 234 Article 3 judges, and that includes 3 Supreme Court justices, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, and 54 appellate judges. So that's a lot. The Biden administration didn't get that many. I think they had around 160, 159 district judges, and then 42 appellate, and then some others. But so far, Trump is way behind that figure. As Mike Lee was saying over the weekend, we're going to get a bunch of confirmations done before we go home for summer. We need to fix this lag from where Trump was at the same point in his first term and where Biden was at a comparable moment. And I think the Senate's going to do it. Now, I will say there are fewer vacancies currently available, so that restricts the number of confirmations that you're seeing. But, we've got a vacancy in the Middle District of Alabama here where we not only don't have a confirmation, but we don't even have a nomination at this point. So, there are things that need to be done. I think in general, President Trump is doing an excellent job, and the country is moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I do too. I'm very, very proud of everything he's done. The guy has stamina like nobody else does. I don't know how he jumps these hurdles. I mean, I know constantly things are being thrown at him. His family's targeted all the time. His wife, who's a supermodel, for goodness sakes, should be on the cover of every magazine. Yeah, Michelle Obama was. And
I can't wait to see what Barron Trump's going to be like. I mean, is the guy ever going to stop growing? He's already a tree. It's unreal. Like I can't even. It's crazy. I wonder what he's going to be. He's got a bright future for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he's very bright, and I see a big future for him. Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about Alabama politics.
Okay.
You got the governor's race going on right now, and unless he gets on top of the Empire State Building and starts shooting people, it looks like Tuberville's going to be the governor.
Looks like we're going to have a new sheriff in town. Yeah, I don't see any way that Tommy Tuberville is not our next governor. I think the most competitive races are probably going to be Secretary of State and Attorney General. I think Attorney General is going to be tight because Kathy Robinson and Jay Mitchell are both well-known and well-liked and well-funded. So that could be a very interesting race, and that office is a very important office. So that's exciting to see. I think watching Caroline Dobson and Andrew Sorrell run against each other will be an interesting and close race too. And all four candidates I just mentioned are wonderful people and would do an excellent job. So I'm excited to see how those turn out. I'm probably more excited than they are about having to campaign against each other, but it will be certainly interesting to see how those play out.
Well, what's going on with Ainsworth? I'm hearing very, very little from him.
Yeah, well, he announced he's not running for governor, so since then I assume he's just going to go back into private practice unless he's trying to figure out some other thing that might be available. I don't know. He's met President Trump in the past. Maybe there's a connection there or contact there that might help him get some type of appointment that we're not even thinking about. I don't know. He wants to stay here in Alabama, so you wouldn't expect him to be like ambassador to blah, 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 and have to move overseas. So I don't really know exactly what he's hoping to do. I know he'll want to stay relevant in Alabama politics, but you got to assume Tuberville is going to get 8 years out of his governorship. So that's a long time in politics. But I would definitely not expect Ainsworth to go away. I just don't know where to expect him to go.
Yeah, how about the race? You mentioned Secretary of State. So how is that one heating up right now? And Lieutenant Governor as well.
Yeah, I think they're all heating up. And when you've got Rick Pate and Wes Allen and all these well-known, high-profile figures running, you've got to be somewhat cautious about making predictions because anything can change. Now, the one that I think is on the federal level, an Alabama race, but on the federal level that is interesting as well is the seat that Tommy Tuberville is giving up. I think Steve Marshall is polling well ahead of anybody else, but Barry Moore is also a popular and known figure, and he is not polling as well, mainly because, and this is my assumption, is that he's confined to a district, so he may be well known in the district, whereas Steve Marshall has held statewide office, which has forced him to be in all counties and all throughout the state for the last 8 years. And he's done a good job and has earned a lot of support and trust from the Alabama voters. But there's a long time left in that race, and anything can happen. And, there's even talk of Bruce Pearl throwing his hat in. I don't think that will happen. I think Bruce Pearl enjoys coaching Auburn basketball and has really turned that program around. But the fact that his name's even being floated suggests that the race could get more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, it's just been some. Now, Alabama's politics can get pretty nasty.
It can. It sure can. I know. Whenever I dip my toe in it, someone tries to cut the toe off.
I know it. But I'll tell you, some races are getting hot right now, and that's the mayor races. Wow, especially in Albertville.
What's going on there? I'm not familiar.
Fort Payne. Well, I'll be talking to the opponent.
Good.
The guy who's mayor right now. I'll be in Alabama at Twin City Used Car Sales. And so his opponent's going to be there with me. And so we'll be talking with him. But it's pretty hot because of all of the illegals who moved in. You had mentioned one of the restaurants. Well, there's also a Chinese restaurant that was raided. and so a lot of illegal drugs was going on in there. Crime rate in Albertville has hit a high. I mean, it's shot up. It's not the Albertville I used to know a long time ago. It's totally different. A lot of Haitians there. And so, and this guy is trying to keep these things quiet, but it's out there. I think had he had his foot down a little bit more on the illegals coming into Albertville, he probably had a better shot at it. But I think his opponent's actually gaining ground.
Oh wow, interesting.
Yeah. And this is something I find interesting. Okay, you and I know about social media. Okay, I know when I post something out there, if I have, say, 500 likes, I'm going to have more than 2 responses. There's going to be more than 2 people who are going to respond, right?
I would think so, yeah.
Okay, well, what I'm noticing on the mayor's race, the guy who's mayor right now in Albertville, you'll see where a whole bunch of people saw what he posted, but there's only 2 or 3, maybe, sometimes 5 responses, and they're all good. Makes me wonder if he's taking the bad ones off.
Yeah, removing the bad ones or getting only people he knows to post the good. I don't know this person, so I don't want to pass judgment on any of this, but I know there are different ways. I have a friend who is running for the United States Senate, and this person was revealing the amount of money spent on social media, and it was astounding. And that was where the bulk of this person's expenditures was, and that was fascinating to me. And this person was telling me about how on Instagram the photos didn't generate as many responses as the little graphics and memes, that those generated more touches from a social media audience than just photos. So fascinating.
But I don't know, the numbers don't add up to me. It just appears to me if you've got 500 people who have looked at this picture, there would be more than 2 or 3 responses.
You would think so, yeah. You would think so.
It's a little weird. And then the big thing's going on also in Fort Payne, and with the mayor there. And those people are, now I'm just going to tell you, people in Fort Payne and Albertville, don't make them mad, okay? They'll turn Democrat on you. I'm just telling you, they'll fire at you. So social media can be the best thing that ever happened to you running for office or running a company, or it can be the worst thing. And social media is not being kind right now to those 2 areas.
Oh, interesting. I'm not familiar with all that, Donna. I'll have to look into that. I just have not paid attention. That's fascinating to know.
I'll give you a few things. But people are putting on, especially in Albertville, it's worse. So they're putting up there. I think Albertville was they're above the national average on crime now. Above the national. And that, I'm going to tell you, it used to be like Mayberry over there.
How about that?
Now they've grown. There's a lot of businesses and what have you in. But now with growth, they've also let the illegals in and just kind of run over everything. And what people are upset about, I want to ask you a question about this. Okay, in my mind, when you get out there and you vote for your city council and your mayor, shouldn't those people be maybe a little more lenient to the people who voted for them? Maybe people who are citizens in those areas? Because that's not the way it's coming across at all.
I would suspect so. Did I freeze there?
Yeah, you froze.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I think I froze. Yeah, I would suspect they would be.
Well, what's happened is they seem to be taking the sides of the illegals. And while I think everybody is wonderful in God's eyes and in God's sight, I really do. And I think you need to be kind to everybody. But now people who pay taxes, I don't think should be paying for food and rent, getting your clothes washed and dried at the dry cleaners. It's just something that seems really, really wrong with that to me.
Now, do you know if they are, if those 2 municipalities are mayor-council government or council-manager government? Do you know which ones they are? I don't. I'm not sure.
It's a real simple thing. I mean, they're voted for by the people. So you have the mayor, and then you have your city council members. And I mean, I've been to some of the city council meetings before, and it's never been like it is now. Now a city council member, you go to a city council meeting once a month. It's turned into a war zone. I mean, people are mad, they're upset, and they're, it's deserved. And
the mayor council government form, that's when it's really, really important to get a good mayor because of the degree of executive power that the mayor exercises in that form. And the council manager, most of the power is vested in the city council and not the mayor, and the mayor's got a more ceremonial role. Now, that's sort of an exaggerated form of the systems as described, but in general, that kind of holds. So I'd be curious to know what kind of powers the mayors would exercise in those different, and what they're running on, what their campaigns are. If immigration is an issue there, are they running on that? Are they talking about how they collaborate with the Trump administration, with the district attorneys, with ICE, law enforcement,
all they're talking about is spending more tax money on salaries.
Oh, interesting. Well, that doesn't seem like that would be a good idea to campain on that.
I wouldn't do that. Especially now Fort Payne is not as bad with the illegal situation as it is in Albertville. Albertville just, I mean, it's so right.
Yeah.
Now, I love people from every country. My daughter-in-law is from Russia. And she's an American citizen. And she gets really upset when people don't try to come in the right way. When they just nobody gets more upset than she does. She was brought here when she was 9 years old, was taught English, could not speak any English whatsoever when she got out of here with her two sisters. And the most grateful person you've ever met, ever. I could give her a paper clip, and I promise you she'd send me a thank you note. I mean, she's just one of those grateful people.
I know so many naturalized citizens who are incredibly patriotic about the United States and incredibly grateful to be here, and who had to jump so many hurdles to get here that it makes them mad to see people circumventing the system and short-circuiting the system and going around it and doing things illegally. It makes them so mad because of how much money, time, effort they spent to do things the right way. And they're usually the people who are the most anti-illegal immigrant of all, because for them it's not fair. They did everything the way they were supposed to, and now...
And my son says there are certain times he does not take her to the grocery store. He said there are certain times when they get their checks, or they get their money in their account, whatever it is they do, he said, I don't take Larissa to the store. And I beg her not to go, because she gets really upset. She'll look in their cart and see their necessities. And then he said that because she's still got a little Russian in her, okay? And he said that she'll look at their cart, then she'll look at the cart of the illegal, then she'll look at her cart, and then and she'll just walk over there and just look in their carts. And he has to grab her by the arm and goes, get back here. But I'm going to tell you what, no one knows more history than she does. No more American history than Larissa knows. She loves American history.
The citizenship test is, something that everybody in America should be able to pass.
It should be. You were talking about the areas, and one thing that I meant to mention to you as well is how close Albertville and Geraldine. So I live in Geraldine, small town. It's the next town up from Albertville. So before Phil and I moved, we started noticing things. It seems like some of that was migrating towards Geraldine. And another thing is we called the police. I think I told you about it. There was a little meth lab out on our land. Upset me like crazy. Nothing was ever done about that. So anyway, that mayor's race is coming up too. And there's a guy who's running against the existing mayor, and he'll probably win.
Wow. Well, I saw you're in South Carolina now. I saw this footage on social media of an officer, I believe it was in South Carolina, I'm pretty sure, who was doing a pat down of some kind of a woman and got exposed to fentanyl and had that reaction, and that was a shocking video.
That was something else. That was up in Greenville, pretty close to the North Carolina line, not too far from here, like 2 hours or something like that. Yeah, but I'm going to tell you something. People around here, Phil and I went to an event. It was on the square in Abbeville, small town. It was like a Christmas card, it's just one of those kind of towns. And so there was a Confederate. It was like they wanted to do kind of like this reenactment of Confederacy. And there was a young guy. I mean, he was over the whole group. And so he gets there, and there's a statue out there. And there's nothing to be offended about the statue, but some liberals have been trying to get them to do the statue. First words out of that guy's mouth is, "We don't get rid of statues in this town." I mean, and I told Phil, I said, "I bet they don't try either." Because, I mean, it's pretty direct. And that's what I'm noticing about people in this town right here. They're pretty direct. They love the town. They want it to grow. They want businesses to come in, but they want it done the right way. And they want a mayor and they want a city council who's going to be for the people who vote for them. That's the way it should be.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because that's the way it was when I was a kid growing up in Alabama. Those towns I just mentioned to you. I mean, it was just like, man, you really looked up to your city council members, but man, they'd fight like dogs for you. I mean, they would just fight. And the mayor would too. And it's just, I don't know, it just seems like things have just really changed.
Yeah, they certainly have. They certainly have. It's a different world. I get to be isolated from a lot of the mayoral drama here in Auburn, where we've got a good mayor here. And obviously, mayoral races aren't something I follow very closely unless they happen in New York City, which I'm still not following it very closely, but it's one of those that everybody is kind of paying attention to right now. At any rate, I think that there has been, in general, a vibe shift. People are talking about the vibe shift online, and I think the country is fed up, fatigued with a lot of the sort of racial posturing and white guilt and discriminating on the basis of alleged anti-discrimination, and the country is really just kind of seeing through all the things that we knew for years and years and years were BS, but no one would say anything. And now it's like, okay, can we now talk about how this is ridiculous? Is it okay in polite conversation to point out what's obvious, that this is not right, this is not right? We can say that now. And I think
like the government has been this huge narcissist organization, and that's the way it feels. And it feels like they've been just, gaslighting us all these years. And people are tired of it, just like you just said. We don't want to. We just want to. And if somebody wants to be, they don't know what gender they are, fine. I mean, you got to find your way. You got to be you, whatever you got to do. Just don't drag our kids in on it.
Yeah, don't drag the kids on it, and don't be a man competing in female sports. I mean,
and I'm saying this to all the women out there who are in who hate men, who are in all these big women organizations. You should be the first one to mad that a man is winning the beauty contest.
That's the craziest thing.
It's absolutely nuts. 30 seconds. What would you like to say before we go?
Well, I'd like to say that the summer of 2025 was, I think, a very good summer for the United States of America. We entered into what will be the semi-quincentennial, the celebration of the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And I think for this entire year, as well as the year following, we should celebrate that document and what it means today.
I think so too. Alan, hang around and we'll get you set up for next month. Thank you guys so much for watching. You're the reason we do this. It makes me feel so good to get those emails. Donna@donnasedge.com. Donna@donnasedge.com. Thank you so much for watching.